Hello, hello. All right, I think we're working. Hey, welcome. Thanks so much for coming out today to this live stream. I'm Axel, Axel T. Ernst from Get Speaking English, and today we're going to check out this article that I have up on screen here. Um, there we go. We're going to be checking out this article together. It's part of my series that I've been doing about sustainability. So, if you don't know, lately I've been sharing a lot of posts and activities and different things about sustainability all over my social media accounts. And I've been doing conversational classes about these articles as well. So, there is a conversation class based on this article. You are more than welcome to book a class with me, talk about this, or talk about it during a couple of classes. I have a lot of material and things we could check out together. Um, and not just about eating insects, but about just sustainable food and eating choices in general. And of course, too, you can always find out more articles about different topics on my Telegram channels. So I will leave those links there. Yeah. Um yeah. So feel free to you can visit the booking page, check out the website, learn how to book that way. You can send me a message as well. But anyways, for this class, I thought it would be good for us to go through this article together. I'm going to read it. You'll be able to hear the pronunciation. I'll discuss some of the useful vocabulary and phrases that come up, maybe some of the grammar points. And then afterwards, I'm going to take this video. Well, it'll be on YouTube. I'm actually experimenting today and I'm streaming it on YouTube as well. So it's gonna be there on YouTube. You'll be able to re-watch this video, and you'll also be able to check out the notes I'm going to make during this class. All right. So I do have the chat open. I have Facebook open. I also have YouTube open as well. So you're more than welcome to say hello in the comments or comment about anything you find interesting as we go along and check out this article. This lesson is not going to be super interactive like some of my other lessons are. Depending on how many people come out in the future, I will probably make it a little more interactive. But right now, the goal is for me to read it, for you to hear the pronunciation, for you to get more information about some of the key vocabulary in here, and then you could use that going forward to get speaking English about sustainable food choices or just food in general. And yeah, hopefully that will help you discuss this topic a little bit more in depth. Okay, so let's just get right into the article then. Yeah, so here we go. So eating insects is good for you and the planet, all right? And we can see here this picture. I think that's a cricket or a grasshopper. Not 100% sure. And you see that this person is holding this insect with a pair of chopsticks. So there you go, some quick vocabulary right off the bat just about this picture. But yeah, it looks like this person is about to eat this grasshopper or this cricket using chopsticks to do it. All right, perfect. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to read paragraph by paragraph. I'll discuss some words, I'll make some notes, and then you can check this out later, review it, and whatnot. Okay. All right. So does the idea of eating insects bug you? And right here we have kind of an interesting word. If something bugs you, it maybe bothers you. Or in this case, does it disturb you? Yeah. So if something bugs you, it sort of irritates you a little bit, maybe annoys you slightly, or disturbs you in this context. But yeah, so a little play on words there, because a bug is a very informal way to refer to an insect. So we have a little bit of a play on words here already, right at the top. So just a bug, a very informal way to talk about an insect. Okay, so does the idea of eating insects bug you or bother you? Well, think about this. The United Nations predicts that by 2050, if current trends continue, the world's population will reach 1.8 billion. As a result, global demand for food and feed is expected to increase by 70%, putting additional pressure on already overexploited agricultural resources. All right, so think about this. The United Nations predicts by 2050, if the current trends continue, if things continue like they've been going, we'll have a lot of people on the planet. So as a result, the global demand for food and feed is expected to increase by 70%. So when we talk about feed here, feed as a noun, we're referring to animal feed. Basically, the food that we use to give to animals to eat. So specifically, in this case, probably things like corn or grain, things like that. So food that's specifically grown to give to, or yeah, produced to give to animals. But also sometimes too, it comes from other animals as well, like proteins and things like that. So anything that we use to give to animals to eat, we could refer to it as feed in this case, okay? Um, yeah. And so it's already putting pressure on already overexploited agricultural resources. So if something is, so this word here, we can see that we have the word exploit in here. We have the word exploit in here. If you exploit something, you use it in a way that helps you. But often, and in this context, it usually has a negative meaning. So, if you use something unfairly to your own advantage, you would be exploiting that person or that thing. So here we have a very sort of very negative meaning. Um, so we're using basically too many resources, and we're overdoing it. Like it's just we're not just exploiting them; we are doing it too much to an extreme. It's not sustainable. So that's what we mean if something is over exploited. So it's way too much. And of course, too, we have agricultural. Agricultural with the accent here, which obviously refers to agriculture. Talking about farming, food production, things like that. So anything related to farming and food has to do with agriculture. So and notice the shift in the syllable stress there. So agriculture becomes agricultural when we turn it to an adjective. Yeah, so agriculture, syllable on the first stress on the first syllable, agricultural. We shift the stress to here. All right, great. All right. Global demand for meat in particular will continue to increase as dietary habits in developing countries change due to rapid urbanization and economic growth. All right, so the global demand, so basically what everybody needs for meat will continue to increase, will continue to rise as the dietary habits, the way people eat in developing countries change. So if we're talking about a developing country, we're talking about a country that maybe doesn't have a lot of economic activity or industrial activity, where people tend to have lower incomes. So so that's what we mean when we talk about developing countries. And this change, they're saying, is due to rapid urbanization and economic growth. So anything urban usually has to do with the city. So in this case, we talk about urbanization. So urbanization, we mean turning land into land used by cities. So for example, maybe taking farmland, taking forest land, and basically building cities over top of it, things like that. So all of that is what we mean when we talk about urbanization, basically changing previously, maybe previous like areas in the countryside, for example, or forest or natural areas, and turning it into places where there are cities. All right. Yeah, so due to this, the increase in cities and economic growth in those countries, and their changing dietary habits, so the way they eat, there's going to be more demand, more need for meat in particular. All right. So the oceans are already overexploited, and climate change will have a profound impact on food production. Meanwhile, nearly 1 billion people worldwide suffer from chronic food deprivation. So, some interesting words here. So, as we said, over something exploited, we're using it too much in a negative way. So oceans are already overexploited. We are fishing too much. And climate change will have a profound or a very deep impact on food production. Meanwhile, nearly 1 billion people worldwide suffer from chronic food deprivation. So deprivation comes from this word, like, to deprive someone or something of something. And deprive means to basically prevent someone from having something they need. So if you deprive someone of food, you don't give them enough food, right? So and that noun form is deprivation. So here, food deprivation means basically that people need food, but they cannot get enough of it. So food deprivation, yeah, you can't get enough of it. Another collocation that I could think that is very common is also sleep deprivation. When you can't get enough sleep. So maybe you're an insomniac, for example, or you just didn't have a very good night's sleep. You may not be able to do your work as efficiently because of sleep deprivation, because you did not have enough sleep. So if you're deprived of sleep, it is hard to function. All right. So they suffer from not just food deprivation, but chronic deprivation, and something chronic happens a lot or constantly. It doesn't go away. You may hear people talk about chronic pain, for example, or a chronic illness. So again, an illness or some sort of pain that just doesn't go away. So it stays for a very long time. So that's what we mean if something is chronic. So a lot of people don't have enough food, and that's a problem that persists. It goes on for a very long time. All right. So among the possible solutions, one is quietly making its way into the public's attention. Eating insects. Right. Alternatives to animal protein. All right. So just so we're all on the same page, if we're talking about animal protein, we're basically talking about meat, right? That we could eat. So for some examples of animal protein could be beef that comes from cows, right? We have pork that comes from pigs, and also chicken, very common example of animal protein that comes from chickens, okay? So, and if we're talking about an alternative, we're talking about other ways or other options. So something we can do instead of eating animal protein, or instead of eating beef, pork, and chicken, for example. All right. To meet current and future food challenges, the agri-food sector needs to be rethought. We need to find new ways to grow food, address inefficiencies, and develop new approaches to production methods. All right. So to to address or basically fulfill the current and future food challenges, so the amount of food we need, this sector, so the agri-food sector, so the agricultural food sector, needs to be rethought. So we need to think about it again. We need to find new ways to grow food, address inefficiencies, and develop new approaches to production methods. So inefficiency is kind of looks like a big word, but again, we can check out the root word and sort of figure out what it means. So we can see the word in here. We can almost see the word efficient in here, right? So it's something efficient. It's something that works very quickly, very effectively, very easily, right? It doesn't take a lot of effort, maybe. And then something inefficient is the opposite of that. So it does not work very quickly or effectively. So inefficiencies refers to things that do not work efficiently, things that aren't effective. So problems, basically, areas where things aren't functioning very well, basically. So we need to address these problems, these inefficiencies, and develop new approaches to production methods. Okay. So in addition to population growth, urbanization and the rise of the middle class in developing countries are increasing global demand for food, especially animal protein. The production of traditional feed ingredients such as cereals, fish meal, and oil seeds must be reduced and substitutes found to make more efficient use of resources. Okay, so in addition to population growth, so on top of that, urbanization and the rise of the middle class in developing countries are increasing global demand for food. Right. So we have already talked about urbanization, right? The growth of cities, new cities, right? Tied to population growth, right? More people. If you have more people, you need bigger cities. If you have more people, also you need more food to feed them, right? And they're also talking about here like the middle class here. So if we talk about middle class, we kind of mean people who are, they're not super well off. They don't have tons of money, but they're also not really poor. They're kind of sort of in the middle. So they're usually kind of educated. They might have decent jobs that pay decent wages, but they aren't rich. They're not extremely wealthy, and they also tend not to be super poor. So they're kind of in the middle. So there's a growing middle class of people in these developing countries. And because of that, there's more need for food, especially animal protein. So the production of traditional feed ingredients. So again, that food that we give to animals, such as cereals, fish meal, and oil seeds, must be reduced and substitutes need to be found. So if we talk about cereal, in this context, we're talking about grains, wheat, things like that. And fish meal, I believe it's sort of like food that's taken from ground, like they take fish and they grind them up into something that can then be fed to animals. So basically we're talking about that. And I think oil seed is just a type of seed we can see here. But yeah, we need to reduce these things and we need to find substitutes or other options instead so we can make more efficient use of resources. The billions of animals raised each year for food are putting increasing pressure on land and water resources and contributing to climate change and other negative environmental impacts. So, billions of animals, so lots of animals that are raised each year for food. Just putting a lot of pressure. It uses a lot of land and resources. And all of that obviously has a lot of big negative impacts, right? So livestock farming for meat production puts considerable pressure on global land and water use. At present, a large proportion of the protein produced for livestock feed comes from sources that are sometimes unsustainable and harmful to the environment. All right. So this word here, livestock, this is a great word to know when talking about food and farming. Livestock is just basically a very general word that refers to animals that we would raise on farms. So animals like cows and chickens, pigs, anything. Typically, the things that would end up being butchered and then we would eat. All of that is livestock, or also that we would get milk from as well, and eggs, eggs from chickens. So, yeah. So, right. So the farming of these animals or the raising of these animals for meat production puts considerable pressure on global land and water use. So something considerable here. Something is considerable. we mean a lot. It's like it puts a lot of pressure on something. All right. So eating insects. So to meet the considerable challenges, so again, considerable, uh, to meet the considerable challenge of ensuring food security for the future, it is imperative to find alternative and sustainable sources of protein, both for human consumption and for animal feed. Insect-derived proteins are one possible solution. Insects, especially fly larvae, have many qualities that make them well adapted to animal feed. All right, so again, we have the word considerable here. So a considerable challenge, we mean very large, a very large challenge. Yeah, so to meet this really big challenge of ensuring food security for the future, it is imperative to find alternative and sustainable sources. So we talk about food security, we mean people having enough food to eat. And on the other side, if we talk about food insecurity, we mean people who don't have enough to eat. Or maybe they can't access food, things like that. So anything that has to do with access, affordability, sort of falls under this category. So making sure there's basically enough food in the future. It is imperative or extremely important to find alternative and sustainable sources of protein. So both for human consumption and for animal feed. So human consumption, basically, for eating by humans. So if we consume something, it's kind of, we could use that kind of as a fancy way to mean eat. We also hear, you know, you consume resources and things like that as well. But here we mean to eat something. So consumption in this context means eating. So for human consumption, to be eaten by humans, and to be used as animal feed. So insect-derived proteins are one possible solution. So something, so derive, the word derive, if something is derived from something, it means it's taken from something. So to derive means to take, essentially. So we're talking about protein that is taken from insects. So something that's derived from something else is taken from something else. So in this case, they're using it to create that that food, that protein. So insects, especially fly larvae, have many qualities that make them well adapted to animal feed. And now I know that the word larvae has come up quite a few times. I wonder if I should share a picture of what a larvae is. Just a second here. So we know that insects go through many different stages in their life cycles, right? You know, they may start out as eggs, and then the eggs hatch, they turn into larvae. And then there's also sort of like this kind of this change where they turn from larvae into full-grown insects. And we're talking about larvae. We mean when they're kind of like at the stage. So when they're sort of like those little, almost like little grubs or little caterpillars, something like that. Um, and also too, I just want to point out as well too. So larva is one of these. So the singular is larva, but the pronunciation changes when we make it plural. So in this case, it becomes larvae. So that's kind of an interesting little thing happening here. Not a lot of words in English change their pronunciation if something is a plural, but this is one of those examples when it does, so that's kind of interesting. So larva for one, larvae for multiple. All right. Let's see here. Okay. For example, insects are already a natural For example, insects are already a natural source of food for pigs and poultry, as well as for many fish species. In addition, insect larvae are generally high in protein and are rich in other beneficial nutrients such as fats, minerals, and vitamins. All right. Yeah, so if it's a natural source, so just in nature, they're saying that it would be something that pigs and poultry would naturally eat. So in the wild, for example, they would eat insects. Um and poultry, so poultry is kind of an interesting word. Poultry is a general way to refer to the different kinds of birds we raise for food. So, for example, chicken is a type of poultry, turkey is a type of poultry, duck, goose. I think that's it. Yeah, so those kind of birds all fall under the category of poultry. So, and obviously, yeah, these, especially chickens and things, they would eat insects in their natural environment. And it's also, yeah, also food for many fish species. In addition, insect larvae are generally high in protein and rich in those nutrients. So something is high in something, in this case protein, it means that there's a lot of it. So you might hear people say that certain foods are high in saturated fats. It means that there are a lot of saturated fats. Or maybe something is high in fiber. That means that there is a lot of fiber in it. So that is kind of a great little phrase, we'll say, especially when talking about food and the quality, the quantity of nutrients or what's in it. And we can see here we also said that they are rich in something as well. So just another way too of saying that there's a lot of something. So in this case, where it's common to say that something is rich in nutrients. So a lot of kind of vitamins and minerals. Also common to say that something is rich in vitamins and minerals, and this is a bit of a collocation here, vitamins and minerals. But yeah, just because they have a lot of these very important nutrients, very important elements in that food. So it's really good. So lots of fats, minerals, and vitamins. As a source of protein for direct human consumption, insects offer several advantages over traditional sources of meat. They have a significantly higher feed conversion rate than other livestock, which means they are more effective at converting the ingredients used to feed them into nutrients. All right, so kind of a lot going on here. A little bit complicated to understand, I think. They're basically saying so as a source of protein for direct human consumption, so eating them directly, they offer a lot of advantages. So if humans just eat insects, there are a lot of pros, a lot of benefits from that. They're saying they have a significantly higher feed conversion rate than other livestock. And they're more effective at converting the ingredients used to feed them into to nutrients. What am I doing here? Sorry. Where are we? Yes. Okay. Converting the ingredients used to feed them into nutrients. There we go. What they're basically kind of saying here, they're basically saying that the insects are really good at taking the food they eat. So the insects obviously eat food, right? And they're basically really good at converting like a large portion of that energy and nutrients into something that will benefit whatever eats it. So in this case, humans. So yeah, so they're really good at changing that energy. They do it very efficiently. So, and they're basically have very high levels of nutrients, energy that can be eaten and consumed by humans. So yeah, so they do it very effectively. Whereas apparently other forms, livestock and things like that, they are less effective at converting their energy into something that would benefit us after we eat it. And obviously, we mean to convert something into something else. We just mean to change something from one thing to another. Yeah. So yeah, so they're great for converting, that energy, the food they eat, into something that would directly benefit us. So in addition, insect production is more environmentally friendly than conventional livestock production. Insects release much lower amounts of greenhouse gases and ammonia into the atmosphere per kilogram of meat than cattle or pigs. So, right, so it's also more environmentally friendly than conventional livestock production. So something conventional, we mean like traditional or typical livestock production. And yes, they release much lower amounts of greenhouse gases and ammonia. So ammonia is just basically a type of gas. A gas that it sort of one of the greenhouse gases, but yeah, they don't release a lot of ammonia into the atmosphere. And they release a lot less ammonia compared to cattle or pigs. So cattle here, just another way to say cows. So yeah, so cattle. Okay. So larvae that recycle. Insect larvae in particular are efficient consumers of a wide range of organic materials. They have the ability to overcycle relatively low quality organic residues as feedstock into valuable proteins and lipids. So another sort of complicated little idea here. So yeah, so insect larvae are efficient consumers of a wide range of organic materials. So an organic material here, we mean basically like plant matter or animal tissue, so the bodies of animals, decomposing animals, things like that. So they're very efficient. They're very good at consuming that kind of waste. And they have the ability to overcycle relatively low quality organic residues as feedstock into valuable proteins and lipids. What the heck does this mean? It just basically means that they can eat very low quality plant matter, animal tissue, and they can convert it into like high quality energy, basically. So then animals can eat the insects and get a lot of benefits out of that. So they're very good at basically taking something that is is not very valuable in terms of nutrients and energy, but they're able to produce it into something that is very high in energy and nutrients. So that is one really great thing about insects. So although direct human consumption of insects is not widespread in Western countries, raising insects to transform organic waste streams offers an interesting opportunity to produce food ingredients for animal production. In particular, the larvae of the black soldier fly has a nutritional profile that makes them a potential ingredient to replace traditional food ingredients intended for human consumption. All right. So, so what they're saying here, so although direct human consumption of insects is not widespread, they're basically saying, so although, eating insects is not very widespread or not very popular in Western countries, it's still, raising insects to change that organic waste, that organic material into a food source for animals is a really great idea and a really good opportunity. So in particular, yeah, they're saying the larvae of this soldier has a huge nutritional profile that makes them a potential ingredient to replace traditional food ingredients intended for human consumption. So, yeah. So we talk about a profile of something. Just basically like they're a short description of them or whatever. So they're just basically like they'd be really fantastic to replace some traditional food ingredients that humans would traditionally eat. So, okay, yeah. Sure. All right, so multinational munching. And if you don't know what munching is kind of another way to refer to like chew, kind of. So if you munch on something, it means that you chew on something. Um, all right, so the cultivation of insects raised specifically for domestic animals and fish has been the subject of sporadic assessments for several decades. However, the widespread adoption and commercialization of these approaches remains difficult. The methods are still artisanal and have been mainly developed and deployed in emerging countries with limited resources. All right, so the cultivation of insects, so basically the raising of insects, specifically for domestic animals and fish, has been the subject of sporadic assessments for several decades. So it means that it's been studied a bit, but not very consistently, because something sporadic really just happens from time to time. So, not very frequently at all. So there's been some studies basically, but not a lot. So we could do more, maybe, potentially. However, the widespread adoption and commercialization of these approaches remains difficult. So, the widespread adoption, so having it happen more often, and turning that into some sort of like something that could become a business would be very, very difficult. So a lot of the methods are still artisanal and have been mainly developed and deployed in emerging countries with limited resources. Um, so I thought artisanal was kind of an interesting word here. Something artisanal is typically something kind of made by hand, maybe by a craftsman or something like that. Typically somebody who is very skilled. Maybe it's done in a very traditional way. I think essentially what they're saying is that the methods are still like it's like a niche thing. It's not something that happens everywhere, obviously. It only happens in very specific restaurants, maybe, or very specific people. And it's kind of like they're doing it almost as an art or something like that. So, so it's not, commercialized at all. It's kind of it's more, they're doing it more for maybe like artistry or something like that. So, yeah. So, yeah, so a lot of the methods are artisanal or sort of something done by hand and have been mainly developed and deployed in emerging countries with limited resources. So again, an emerging country, basically another way to say a developing country. Yeah, developing country. And basically a lot of this has been happening only in countries where there isn't a lot of money, basically. So there's limited resources, there's limited money, things like that. So they've been basically resorting to using insects. However, a convergence of factors has revived interest in this area, particularly from a number of multinationals in the agri-food sector. A combination of new municipal regulations limiting organic waste disposal and the need to find sustainable ingredients for animal feed have led to a renewed interest in insects and their ability to transform organic waste into valuable food resources. All right. So a convergence of factors has revived interest. So if something converges, it means they meet. So two roads might converge. So what they're saying is that, like, there are several factors and they've kind of met in the middle, they've kind of overlapped, they've converged. So there's a convergence of factors that has revived interest. So it has created renewed interest. It's come back to life. So there was an interest for a bit, but now it's back. Particularly from a number of multinationals, so really large international companies in the agri-food sector. So a combination of new municipal regulations limiting organic waste disposal and the need to find different ingredients have led to renewed interest in insects. So if we talk about something municipal, we usually mean something local. So something it's like the opposite of international. It's very very like regional, very local. They basically mean local, regional regulations. So it's like a very specific area. So there's been lots of local or municipal regulations limiting organic waste disposal. So they're saying that people can only throw out so much organic waste So they have to find something else to do with it. So insects is a good alternative. And because they're really good at transforming that waste into something that could be eaten, it's it's very promising, very interesting information that we could use. Um, okay, so I think that's it. I know there was a lot. There's some interesting things in this article, some tricky things in this article, but I hope that's a little bit clearer. If you have if you have questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Um, you're also more than welcome, obviously, to book a chat about this with me. We could talk about it. But yeah. So let me know too, in the comments if you think that let me know if you've ever eaten insects for starters. And if you think that, if you haven't, if you think that that's something you would do. Yeah, so let me know what you think about that. I'd love to know. And again, if you want to continue this conversation, if you want to continue this conversation, like I said, I have a conversational class all about this and sustainable food choices. I definitely recommend reading this article again. You could use this free live class. You can rewatch it on YouTube, study the vocabulary and the pronunciation. I know the pronunciation is really tricky sometimes, so that's why it's great to hear these kind of articles read out loud so you can hear everything as you're reading. And then, book a class, right? So you can have one class about this, you can have a few classes about this. I always have lots to talk about. And continue following me on Telegram. Right now I'm releasing new articles every 2 weeks. So that is my general goal here, to look at something new every 2 weeks or so. So be sure to follow me there so you don't miss an article and don't miss a conversation class. All right, so you're more than welcome to just do a conversation class, and they don't just focus on discussion questions. There's also speaking activities and different tasks there, and also because a lot of my followers are preparing for exams like the B2 exam, or the B2 first exam, the C1 advanced exam. I also include part 2 and part 3 style speaking activities that we can work on together. Or you could also take it a step further, turn it into a lesson where we can focus more on vocabulary, grammar, and I can really help you with things like your pronunciation and fixing your fossilized errors. Also, lessons are the only way to get writing feedback from me, and that's really important, especially when you are preparing for an exam. All right, great. Anyways, like I said, follow me on Telegram for more articles and more information. And if you would like to book a class, you can check out my website, www.getspeakingenglish.com, or you can go direct to the booking page or send me a message on Telegram or an email. Anyways, okay. One last thing too, as well. I've been doing a new thing. I have been playing um, I've been doing crosswords on Twitch. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturdays at 1300 UTC, I'm doing crosswords. So you are more welcome to come out. You're more than welcome to come out and hang out with me while I do a crossword. It's an interesting way to learn vocabulary, phrases, review our knowledge of English, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been really interesting. So you should definitely come out for that. Okay, anyways, thanks again for coming out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.